So I want to introduce everybody to Julie Conway. She worked with a few architects that I knew back in Nebraska. Are you originally from Santa Fe?
Colorado, Santa Fe, New Mexico. Yeah.
And she was working in Omaha, where I'm originally from, for a few years. And when she moved out here, right before Ellis was born, 4 years ago, we met. Everybody back in the Midwest said, "You got to know Julie. She does amazing work." And so we've recently started using her on one of our Google projects, and I thought this would be a great time to have her come in, talk about how she approaches design, shows some of the stuff that she makes, and generally just the amazing Julie. So with that.
Well, thank you, Jeremy. Thanks for having me, everybody. I'm really thrilled to be here. I am a glass blower and a lighting designer and kind of a jack of all trades. As artists sort of develop many other skills you never thought possible to make your work happen. And I'm really here to talk about, and I want to say hello to the Portland office. I think they're here too, right? And I'm just thrilled to talk to you guys and maybe inspire a way of us collaborating more in the future, but really getting more inspiration of the material itself and glass making and sort of my process. Glass, as we know it today, the hot glass forming, has actually been accomplished for over 4,000 years. And I'm going to give a little slides and a little bit of history of the material and the way it kind of developed throughout the globe. And then, of course, my travels and my adventures and my collaborations in the past and how they've influenced to today. Glass itself is made at 2,100 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's very alchemical. There are a lot of problems, a lot of things that could happen. You add a color, or you add an element, or a metal element, or two pieces of glass together, or the recipe itself of our batch. There's things called compatibility, coefficient of expansion. I wish I would have paid more attention in chemistry class as an artist, and I use it all the time now. So I'm willing to explore this material and go on this journey and exploration, new concepts and designs. I think some artists, come on in, you guys, join in. Some artists get kind of stuck with this is what I do and this is what I'm going to offer the world. And I'm kind of the opposite. I'm the different animal. I love to have people come up with an idea and see if we can make it. And so sometimes it leads us on a crazy journey, but it really explores the glass in a new realm and a new way that it hasn't been expressed before. So that's kind of my journey here. I did want to start out with this picture from Egypt. This is 1500 BC, and they already have hieroglyphics of glass blowers. And this is the first hollow form of glass that we know. So they were already making vessels 3,500 years ago. It's crazy. And they didn't have furnaces and kilns and calculated digital controllers and all kinds of fun stuff. They just still made it happen, and it still blows my mind today. And thinking of this is actually 2,000 years ago in Rome. The yellow vessel on the left, this is a first production lighting. And since I'm a lighting freak and I do a lot of custom lighting, I'm always blown away when I see something like this, because they didn't have diamond wheels. They didn't have the electronic cutting and polishing things that we have today. But they had a production lighting system. And this is when Rome really launched glass into production. They stopped the war during the Pax Romana. They started wanting beautiful things, vessels and plates and amphora for the wine and lighting and beautiful things that actually accent someone's space. And I'm trying to work on that same vein of transcendence, using glass as a material to transcend a space and make it experiential. So also in this world of technology, we have this technology-driven commerce and production and things that are really built with computer and CAD, and I know you guys are really good at that stuff too, but using the hands, and these hands, you guys can come up and look, they're burned and scarred and they don't have a good manicure, but they actually make the work, and so kind of getting into that is very important to me, like keeping the hands on and trying to also work in the new technology, having CAD or LED or something, but still keeping the hands-on element. So walking into a space, again, transcendent. This picture is Hagia Sophia in Turkey. I actually took these pictures when I was there. I was working at the glass furnace school in Istanbul. And on the ceiling is 1 million glass tiles, gilded gold leaf glass tiles built during 560 AD. And it depicts a Madonna and Child Christian image of the church. And in the 1100s, the Muslim religion took over this building and made it a mosque. But they believed so much that these mosaic tiles were so beautiful, and even though their religion doesn't believe in iconography, they kept it there because they appreciated it. They appreciated the handcrafted, the design, the effort. They didn't just, burn it down to ash and build their own thing. They lived with a mosque with a Madonna and Child image in it for centuries because they really found the specialness of the glass and the handcraftedness. This image really inspires me. This is in Chartres, France. This is built in 1260, 1260. These windows are still there. So talk about longevity. So if we do glass projects, they're going to be in the future. The glass, as breakable as it is, it's actually a strong material at the same time. Look at all these buildings around us. They're all built out of glass, right? So these stained glass images are blown in cylinders, and they, after the cylinder cools, they score it, knife it, they put it back in an oven, and the cylinder opens into a flat plate. And then they cut the designs out and lead around them and make these beautiful depictions of stories. And again, the light coming through that window, can you imagine in the 1200s, they were living in mud huts. People didn't have windows in houses, and you went to church, and this light came through, and shadow and color, and again, transcendent of the space. And people kind of got elevated in their spirit and possibility. I think that's pretty fantastic. Can't have a glass lecture without Venice, but I have been a really lucky glass blower in this lifetime. I've been invited to work in Venice 5, 6, 7 times. Been working and living there. And that would not have happened had the island not just recently opened. About within 40 years ago, it has been open to public and visitors. But for 1,000 years, it was a prison island. And the glass blowers, although they were royalty, they were locked on the island to keep the secrets and to guard the secrets of this magical material. And so much so that one neighbor wouldn't talk to the next. They're behind walls, each one. And for centuries, they developed their own voice and their own projects and their own secrets of color and combinations and styles. And it really became known in the world. Venetian glass is like the pinnacle of glass making. The other thing that was interesting is a glassblower could marry the ducal royalty of the Republic, but they couldn't leave the island. They were still prisoners. So the picture below is modern factory glass making, and it's pretty much the same except for the gas and the fuel and the way modern electricity runs the kilns, but the setup is very much the same as it was for 1,000 years. And I talk about transcendence in design. I mean, this is 1650, right before, 100 years, 150 years before the United States. And they're making gorgeous chandeliers for houses. And the artistry, the design, the application, the hanging, the installation, everything about this is complicated today. And they did it about 400 years ago. So I find this to be, an example of design mastery. And funny enough, so the legend goes that there was a glassblower from Murano that snuck out of the Republic and escaped, and he made it to France, and that is how the Hall of Mirrors was made. The chandeliers and the mirroring capacity was always secret until about this time. So one guy got out and leaked the secrets, and it started a whole new side of French glassmaking, but this is still existing today as it was from that time, which was pretty exciting. So moving on to something modern, just a couple years ago, Frank Gehry wanted to work in glass for the sheer fact that it's a transcendent material. He has been working in metal-clad buildings, And here he is in the Louis Vuitton headquarters in Paris, working with something that's translucent. The light comes through, and again, making the galleries. There's an art gallery there and all kinds of things. And it's so transcendent as you walk through, and you're sort of elevated through space, and art is illuminated. And throughout the day, when the sun is changing and the sun is setting, it's changing. The building is dynamic. So that's pretty inspiring. So speaking of France, I went to University of Avignon in France, and some of the things that seeped in to my brain, I didn't realize it at the time, but I was in art school at the University of Avignon. But as I grew later in my career, I started realizing what gets me is something special in a room or something handcrafted in a space. And we all feel it. We walk into a space and something is just beautiful or special or handcrafted, and our soul feels it, even if our brain might not even recognize what's going on. So this little street on the left was like the street to my school, and walked on hand-made cobblestones, and my school was in a building from 1150. You know, it was like crazy. And those handmade wooden windows, and I lived a block behind the Palace of the Popes in Avignon, and heard the bells and all of this stuff. And honestly, my key to the house looked like that. I don't have a picture of my key, but it was like 9 inches long, and it was iron, and you could never stick it in just a pocket and go somewhere. It was this giant key. But you know, everything I touched during that time was always handmade and felt like there was a soul behind the maker. And I think that's something that is really important in a modern age where we have so much technology, and we're on the screens, and we're on this, you know, stuff, and we are connecting, but we're also not connecting. So maybe through the material process, or maybe through the artwork, or maybe through the experience of having that artwork is where it can come through. Oh, that's me also on the, my art teacher took us to a bullfight, and it was sold out. So what do? They just put us on the roof of the Coliseum. I mean, can you imagine in America, the safety rules and stuff? No, we're just like up there on a 2,000-year-old Coliseum built by the Romans. Crazy. And could have easily gotten knocked off to our death. So glass, moving through the ages, there's really big eras of glass. We have Art Nouveau, Art Deco, Bauhaus, all kinds of different you know, segments that got inspired, but they use glass as an expression. And this time in Germany, you know, it was very about strong and bold and simple. And so sometimes I like to draw from an era, and I say, okay, I'm going to use this. I'll walk into a space and I go, oh, this feels like Bauhaus, or this feels like it could go a little crazy, a little more Art Nouveau or organic or something. So drawing from an era is very important to me. Art Deco, Art Nouveau, also really strong eras of glass. They used glass, they used the material as an essential part of their creation. And so on a recent project, I used an Art Deco inspiration for a hotel lobby. And I was studying hotel lobbies in these grand train stations and beautiful hotels that they made in the 20s and 30s. And so I designed those columns, and they're actually tubes of glass formed in a column. And, you know, got it into AutoCAD and that kind of thing. So I should mention now I work in pencil and molten glass. That AutoCAD drawing, not by me. So somebody steps in and helps me with that. I love just getting to the glass. I'm actually not that good of a pencil drawer. I could just scoot right to the glass and start making it, I think in 3D. So travel is sort of really important to me, and this is when I was working out in Turkey at Jamojai and visiting, and so I was at the Blue Mosque, and I went to the baths, and I was working for Petr Novotny. He's a Czech glass master, and I was helping teach the classes. And when I went to the Turkish baths, I met the owner. He said, "Oh, you may," and I learned a little bit of Turkish to work there, and he says, "Oh, you work in glass. You have to come." And this bottom right hotel, he's like, "You have to stay here. The owner loves glass." And the ceilings of every room had all those glass chandeliers, including my room, and everywhere, I mean, every square inch. And then I became an honored guest, and they had me there, and it just turned into this absolutely gorgeous experience because the thread was making glass, and it was just beautiful. We all connected. And so future, those experiences kind of get into your brain and you don't know where they're going to come out, but then getting inspired and doing a project later kind of drew on those old Persian looks and those old Persian colors and the jewel tones and making a project. This is also coated in silver leaf all around the glass. I do have a couple samples here you can look at a little later. And other examples of this one's coated in gold leaf. We put $10,000 of gold leaf on this chandelier and also gold plated the interior just for kicks because, I want to melt that gold into glass. Again, working in Venice, these are two maestro, Lucio Bobacco and Fabio Fornazier, and how they taught me Venetian techniques. One of them is morine, which is these little windows and canes with very complicated days and days of stretching cane, and then you cut them into little bits, and then you put them on a pastorelli, which is a hot plate, and then you roll them up. And so the cylinders became windows going all the way around, and then I developed it into a modern chandelier that got installed last year. Again, I'll take opportunities to work with anybody or learn something, try to make it my own. This working with Hiroshi Yamano, who will actually be at the Museum of Glass, I believe, in 3 weeks. And so his influence of using silver leaf and his very beautiful, simple Japanese Asian style design has also influenced me. So I'm willing to kind of just design things and go into a different realm and try everything I can try in this short life of ours. This picture just inspires me the most because taking that juxtaposition of the old and the beautiful and the centuries and the tradition to something super modern and unknown, and real trial, but that juxtaposition works. And that's sort of me in my brain. It's like taking the traditions of the old and then making something really beautiful and of today and also kind of timeless and hopefully existing. People don't want to get rid of it. They want to move with the pieces that they own, or they want to keep the house and, the chandelier, they'll redesign everything but keep the glass or something like that. So pretty exciting. So here's a few pictures of work. This is me sort of expressing light and shadow, that dark and light that's sort of in everybody's world and brain. Another story is sort of my relationships with clients. And this actually is in Omaha, Anderson Interiors. We've done about 14, 15 projects together. And so getting to know my client or designer or architect that I'm working with and building that relationship. And also, here we have the client. He got involved. He was helping decide where this glass was going to be installed. And then I went on location, and those electricians have actually done about 18 projects of mine. So I really like to stick with the same people when we get going, and we kind of build and build on this relationship and understand more dialogue. But it really is important to me. It's more than just like, can I have a round globe and can you send it in 2 weeks? You're like, yeah, I can. But it's more about integrating in the story, and why are you asking an artist to create something special for you? It's a dialogue, and hopefully then it becomes more special for them. I should mention that these globes are about 12 inches diameter, and they're covered in silver leaf, and I do have an example, and the silver leaf burnishes to a gold color. That's us working. So my other relationships are in the process. I have a team of glassblowers. I have my welders. I have my UL wiring guys. I have fabricators and packers and craters and everything. And so it all becomes part of the story. It's not just the piece of glass. So it's sort of orchestrating, the final destination and those relationships, and then the fabrication in the process. And I really get excited about that. Here I am in Seattle 4 years now. I did meet Jeremy like the week your son was born. Really, it was amazing. Or week before, or something like that. Yeah. And so funny enough, I grew up in the Southwest, and it's like light is every day. Sun, no problem. Day. And then here, the sun does not come out all the time, as we know. And the light that does come out is really precious. And so I'm noticing as a light artist, like, I'll just stop in the middle of the day and go, oh my God, look at this, And I'm sure it happens to you guys too, right? Or Rainier comes out, it's like, just time out, look at this. And so those moments become really, really precious. And I'm finding that as a light artist, this place is more impactful due to the dynamic, subtle changes of light than as New Mexico is just like sun on 360 days, right? So I'm liking that. So speaking of that, Seattle inspiration really took this to the expression. These are clouds, and they're right up here. If you go to the Four Seasons, they're in the new Goldfinch Tavern. So this collection is called Nuvolé, which is clouds, and wanted to make something organic, something that didn't distract from the view, that you could look through, but also enjoy and make mood lighting. And also in that collection is a new aqua sconce, and I do have one of those right here. So it's crackled. It makes a watery pattern on the wall. So it's sort of reflecting the Seattle environment, you know. So I do take into account not only the relationships of the people and the space, but, you know, where we are and what's going on. There's us also installing crazy construction zones where I should never have been bringing blown glass, but that was up to the coordinator. And but it was a success. And so again, it's just those relationships and keeping everything kind of going. And it's more than just making art and thinking of art making. It's you know, bringing the full value of the process and the pieces. That's me and my team. And sometimes they don't even know like where the final decision is going, because they're helping me make this giant platter. And sometimes I like to make glass for the sheer difficulty of glass making. Like, how accomplished can I get with this piece? And what can I design to make that piece? And sometimes they don't even know. And so I have to show them like my whole final vision, and they go, oh, okay. And they'll help, you know, work it. Obviously it gets very heavy and big. So smaller pieces of glass I can do by myself, but once we get a little bit bigger, then I have to have a coordinated team, and we'll see that in a sec. Also for you guys to know, bring it on, colors, patterns, this. I get so inspired by the littlest things. Sometimes people bring me like a little pillow, or like we're talking with the Googles, you know, the metal cave. Yeah, you know, just a small thought, and it can lead into the next thought process. Like I'll go on site visits, and this is in New York City, and you know, what do we have here? We have this beautiful terrazzo tile and like this foyer, and then I made glass samples, and we made colors, and sort of that sort of inspiration coming from the space, and what do we want to do with it. Also, inspiration might just come from nature and me wanting to express that type of vein in a modern lighting situation. So there again, my pencil drawings. This was a project in Madison, Wisconsin, and it was a call to artists, and sometimes I'll answer those, and I did win. It was 105 applications, and met the crew and the construction crew and the developers, and so we get complicated pencil drawings, and then we made samples, and then we kind of went through the whole thing, and then I was there on location for installation. It's pretty fun. And there we are up on the scissor lift. That was 26 feet high. Also, LED, we're all in this world now. You can't just plug in incandescent bulb, even though it really hurts my heart. But I'm always trying new lighting solutions, and we're in this really transformative age where everything's trying to be energy efficient, and I understand that, and I'm all about it. But then at the same time, I really want the effect to be true. I want people to be more transcended or sort of experiencing the light in a positive way than just going, oh my God, you know, yeah, that's a 3-watt LED, but I cannot see any longer, you know, some things like that. So LED systems that have been custom built, they're on the right, and then me on the floor with all my LED bulbs, testing them all. Also, dumpster diving is one of my secret favorite passions. There is a lot of great materials out there, and the picture on the right is a hubcap that I stole out of that crazy ice-covered dump. Can you imagine? And look at all that great perforated steel. Man, I got like $1,000 of steel that day. That was awesome. And so another passion of mine I should really mention is bioglass.org. I'm the founder. It's a nonprofit. It was a nonprofit 501c3, but we're still together. as a band. Bioglass is sort of the expression, education, research, development of alternative fuels for glass makers. We're in a bit of a crisis. Fossil fuels are getting more and more up. Places are closing. There's sort of fuel embargoes that control certain areas. In Europe, they do not have a natural gas resource, so they get it all from Russia. Gazprom is one company. They instilled a 60% delivery tax several years ago, which closed several factories across Europe. The picture on the left is my friend Luigi Catalan's family furnace, open 550 years running, closed because they can't keep the gas bills. The other one on the right is a French factory, all those glass molds just sitting there, nobody working. It's like a ghost town. And this is happening in a simultaneous sort of double-edged sword. We've got Asia making things super cheap. They've got fuel financed by their government. They have low labor. They have this. And then we've got Europe not able to pay the increased costs. And also here in America, we have like students that can't, because the cost keeps going up. You know, glass is not a cheap sport, I should say. Now I'm paying anywhere from $75 to $150 an hour for gas. Okay, so it's expensive. I used to pay $10 an hour when I started out. So we have inherent costs. So when you go down to Pier 1 Imports and you see a final vase finished shipped on the shelf for $35, you know, we're kind of in this crisis. So bioglass is this education, and I'm part of presenting on that. I'm part of putting people together. And look at this, that furnace on the bottom is just like that Roman one we saw earlier. People are rebuilding Roman furnaces using biomass. We're using solar offsets. We're using vegetable oil. We're using methane. There's a whole nother lecture on this. But this is a side-by-side test where we saved tons of fuel. You can see the thermal shot at the top. That big tube is cold and the inner tube is hot, so the air is just going back into the furnace. So we've done a lot of, we've made a lot of progress in some of these things. So me out in the world, teaching in Italy or teaching classes at Pratt. I do lectures, I talk, I try to connect with as many people as I can, and I really enjoy that, and I enjoy people calling me and talking to me about projects. And I think, I don't know, does this just play? Oh, there we go. So here is a quick video of us at the shop. And you kind of see us just working together. They'll listen to me talking, saying a few things. We usually have tunes on, rocking, but I turned them down for the video. The radiant heat of that piece is about 1800. The guy in the back is actually heating up a little bit of a color bit, and he's ready to put it on as the lip wrap on the end. There we go. Cool, I think that's probably it. I'm sorry, oh. Pause. Okay, sorry? It's a cherry wood block, I mean a paddle. So we shape glass with wood and newspaper in our hands. Wet newspaper makes a vapor between you and the glass. So my final slide is sort of like what's happening in the next generations, what's the next design? It's actually a crystal ball. It's so exciting. It's glass. So I'll bring on any questions you like.
All right.
So I've done extremely beginner glass blowing when I was in New York. So, and as a beginner, we were learning how it changes form so quickly, and it's hard to predict how the glass is maneuvering while you're blowing it. So how much do you use that as inspiration to change, or how do you accept that to change your pieces as you're going?
Being adaptable is a trait of a glass blower, and learning to dance with glass. Like glass has it's calling all the shots, number one. You can come with an idea and it's gonna go, but it's sort of coaxing it, tango kind of. I'm gonna coax you this way and glass is gonna go this way. Okay, and so the more you can kind of just literally go with the flow, that's the best way. People will really fight the material and you can kind of see the results in the end, and also glass will fight back. It can cut and burn you. So, yeah. Been there.
So Julie, one thing that we've talked about a lot with the Google work is this inherent nature of glass in and of itself. And then once you introduce light to it, the kind of effects that the glass take on. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the way you're working with glass and then also the way you're working with lighting glass.
Sure. I brought this little lighting example here. This is a piece, and I'll pass them around if you like. This is a piece of glass that has silver leaf on the outside. So it's very silvery and metallic. And then let me turn on my little light here. So when I light it, it does something totally different. And I don't know if we have any place that might show like a effect, but it does do quite a cool effect in the surrounding space. And it does change dynamically. So if you'd like to pass that around, sure. This is the clear crackle, and you can kind of see on this countertop here the cool effects that are watery on the side. Will that work? There you go. Yeah. So that's the effect I want. Walk into a room and go, yeah. So not only making a cool piece of glass, but really getting excited about the space. So, you can do that. This, is a black and silver one, so it'll do a little bit of a different situation. And sometimes I use a muted color. Sometimes it's not about the effect on the walls, but it's about the piece itself. I'm not going to pass this around because it broke and it has a very liable edge for people. I brought this because it's similar kind of from the inspiration we were doing with Google. We're going to be hopefully doing these stalactites in the caves, and the stalactites I made are 4 feet long, so I didn't want to haul them down here, but sort of dripping glass that's almost pouring out of this cave series. So it's kind of inspiring to come up with a new idea, which I would have never done had it not been part of that. Any other questions?
One other thing to add on to that is you briefly talked about some of the alchemy that happens with glass, but I found that really interesting with that's silver leaf, and I would expect it to be silver, but it's gold.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And some of the darker colors are actually, you'd think were black, but.
Right. There is no black glass. There's only depths of purple or dark blue, because black, like in light, if you think of just density of light, you can't get to actual ultimate black because it's nothing, it's gone. So glass is like that. It sort of blows your mind sometimes, the material. So we just get dense color and it makes black, but it's so dense you can't see through it. But yeah, you'll see the edges of it being purple or blue. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was just wondering if you ever do demonstrations of your work, or if we could ever come.
We'll set something up with that. There'll be a follow-up to this with a furnace demo for sure. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Where is your studio, by the way?
Oh, I've got cards here. My studio is literally right down there past those cranes on 1st Avenue South near the Macrina Bakery in Soto. And you're welcome anytime. Pop on by, or we can make a field trip through DLR or something like that. But it'd be great to have you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. Be sure up here I have cards and a little mini brochure and whatever. You can come grab whatever you like.
How did you get started in the why did you pick glass versus, drawing?
So good. So good.
Stuff?
glass took me on. And I had no idea. Even when I was in school in France, and my art teacher took us all around, and I even went to Venice 3 times as a student. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. Glass blowers are neat. And Venice is really fabulous. And then later I moved to New Mexico, back to Taos, and I was doing jewelry, and I was really into welding, really into jewelry and more like smaller welds and soldering. And I kept getting haunted by this guy at the co-op who was like, you got to help me in my glass studio. I just need help. And I was like, okay, you know, I don't do glass. So what? And he cornered me in the yogurt section. And he said he had a huge order. He didn't know who else to ask. I can work with torches in my hands. He was really in a bind. And I was like, okay, all right, I'll come check it out. And I can remember, it was January in Taos, 1997. It was about 4 degrees outside. There was ice on the windows in this place. And it was flame working with torches. And so when I came in, I started touching glass and manipulating it right there. And something was like, oh, this is it. Okay, clear your jewelry bench, get the torches. And then I was sharing a jewelry studio with these guys. I was like, just, this is my glass area. And so sorry. And I really started taking off. And then, you know, it's still happening now, but like back in the day, it was like, you know, you can make pipes and this and smoking. And I was like, you can make anything, you know, that's so boring. So that's really when that European like handcraftedness started coming to me. And I started with cabinet pulls and little lamp finials and jewelry. I still make jewelry. This is my latest line of jewelry. So I took my jewelry making into glass, and everything I made was this big. And now I have these giant 2-story installations. It's kind of awesome to see the progression, but thanks for asking. Yeah.
Do you see the Seattle market or industry of glass blowing? Because we have the Chihuly legacy and the studio at Rainier building and all these things. Like, is this the place where you're seeing this happening?
That's why I moved here. Yeah. This is Murano, was wonderful for 1,000 years. I'm sad to say we're watching the decline of Venetian glassmaking. The boys are not joining their family legacy, and it's sort of falling apart over there. Seattle has the Chihuly legacy with all its teams and Pilchuck Glass School, and I work at Pratt, and there's 100 studios around that sprung out of that. And the glass is also a beehive community, as you saw working. I can't just be a painter and think if I'd like to add clouds and maybe have a cup of tea. I got to be, you know, in it, and I have to have trained people. So those guys in that video, the youngest guy on that team has 10 years. I got 19, one has 25, one has 20. We're bringing years of, you know, craft, and that's really the only way you get good is putting dedication. So here we have this concentration of dedicatedly, you know, great talent, and I wanted to come here for that sheer experience of being in that community. And larger projects can be made. It's also facilities. You need ovens and kilns and drilling and polishing, these things that glass just can't be done without those things. So I'm here in the best place to do it. Yeah. Oh, here we go.
I was just wondering, have you ever had, because you say that you hand draw your designs first, and then when you show it to a client, do they always have, and you guys were talking about how glass is so unpredictable. Is there a sense like sometimes the client gets really excited about a vision of your hand-drawnness, but then when you actually bring the product, it's different?
Yeah, I don't know if I try to draw with the material in mind. Do you know what I'm saying? Because some people go, we want this. I go, tell us that. No, it's not going to happen. So I try to guide it into like what can be happening. But, you know, I think you can kind of do anything. It's really limited with budget a lot of times, because you could always build a lot of components that could be cut, you know, diamond cut, glued, assembled, you know, all kinds of things, little screw points, all, you know, huge assembly. It's just that, you know, where the limitations are our budget a lot of times. So we'll go, oh, let's go with a simpler shape. Then you can get 25 of these, or we can go with a super complicated thing, then you can get 3. So I try to work with people within their parameters too, but also knowing the material and educating the people through the process. Yeah.
Yeah, anyone else? So yeah, as you pointed out, as part of what we're going to start doing with this now is first part would be here, second part will be in their studio so you can see the making, and then hopefully the third part is to do a small installation in the office so you could see some of the fixtures with the light coming through and the sun coming through, that kind of thing. So over a 3-month period instead of a month.
Nice.
Well, thanks everybody. I think you can see why we
Thank
love
you.
Julie so much.
Thank you.
It's really amazing.
Really appreciate this opportunity to speak with you all. Thank you.